This is Leave Your Mark. I'm Vince Cortese, and today we have the privilege of welcoming Jordan Corcoran, a true inspiration. Jordan is a former three-sport athlete from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She's a graduate of North Hills High School and Mercyhurst College. She's overcome personal challenges with mental illness and has emerged as a powerful mental health advocate. As a founder of Listen Lucy, an organization dedicated to promoting mental health and awareness, she is my guest here today. Jordan, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Hi there, and welcome. Now it's time for America's favorite podcast, Leave Your Mark, with your host, Vince Cortese.
If it's fly, loose fitted, it's Cortese. If freezing, chubbers in it, it's Cortese.
Leave Your Mark is about inspiring the world, one guest at a time.
Pass the word from Brooklyn to Pittsburgh, from urban to suburb, it's Cortese, you heard?
And here is our host, Vince Cortese.
This is always good because myself, I'm a native Pittsburgher, and your story resonates with me because you're a native Pittsburgher, and we share a lot of commonalities. I found out we're both from a family of 4 siblings, and we're the third children.
Yes.
We're both advocates in our categories, and we also are athletes deep down inside our hearts.
Yes, we are.
So what I want to do is just introduce more about you and what you're currently doing. But before we do that, let's share a little bit with the audience about where you're born and raised and what your family life was like. So you're born and raised in Pittsburgh, as I mentioned. Share with me what mom and dad did and what your siblings' names were.
Sure. So I, like you said, I was born in Pittsburgh. I was actually born in the North Hills, the north of the city. My mom stayed at home with us, worked as needed, but was home taking care of 4 wild children and assisting us and raising us. My dad worked at Port Authority. He was the director of road operations there. He has a very impressive career there. Started at maintenance and worked his way up to a pretty influential position there, and has made a really incredible career and has taken care of his family. Right now he is retired, so that's wonderful. He plays golf 7 days a week.
That's a nice retirement.
It sure is. He's earned it. I'm one of 4. My sister is Jessica, and my brother Brandon, and then it was me, and then my younger brother, and the family favorite is Brody.
Now share with me what life was like in Pittsburgh, in the North Hills, growing up with your siblings. What was some of the things you enjoyed doing?
We, it's interesting because so much of my story that I get interviewed about is the struggle that I went through. And I very rarely get asked about my childhood prior to my diagnosis. And I'm really happy that I get to talk about it, because I think that the focus of my struggle is big, right? And it seems like maybe that's how my life always was, but that wasn't the case. I not only had 3 siblings who I have always been incredibly close with, but I'm from a very, very large family, and we have, 21st cousins that we all lived for 5 minutes from each other. There was a Zangaro in every grade at North Hills for a very long time. And my childhood was made up of memories, spending time with all of my cousins, going on family trips, so much noise and chaos and laughter, so many very funny memories. It was a very wonderful and chaotic way to grow up that I think has helped establish my character now.
Now, it's always good to have that kind of a surrounding when you're young, because it really rounds you. And then you're the way that it's gone, you're very avid sports and playing basketball, soccer, and track. So these things typically help build confidence. So I'm very curious then, hearing where you really felt like you had a normal childhood, how this begins to take place. And then you said it really kind of boils over when you're 19, and at that point you're in college. So take me to the part where you begin to notice thoughts in your head are different, and what kind of thoughts are they?
So it started that I started getting, and now I know, right? I was having severe anxiety, but I didn't know at the time. There wasn't a conversation about mental health. There weren't advocates out there. This conversation wasn't being talked about. I don't come from a family where things like this are talked about. They're getting more comfortable now because I'm so in everybody's face about it, and the world has changed. So I started having these actual physical side effects. And I was having, I wasn't sleeping. I was having tightness in my chest. I couldn't keep anything down. I was shaking a lot. And like you mentioned, I was a pretty big athlete, a very devoted athlete. And it was starting to interrupt my ability to play. When that started happening, with sports being such a major part of my identity, it almost magnified and made the problem so much worse, so much faster, because when I felt like now these physical side effects were starting to really, really impact my day-to-day life. At the time, we didn't know much about mental health or mental illness. That's not what was suggested to me first. Because of all these physical side effects, I was being tested for all of these really big diagnoses, MS, hypoglycemia.
This was during your high school window.
Yeah, this started my junior year of high school.
Okay.
At the time, like you mentioned, I was a 3-sport athlete. I was the captain of my basketball and soccer teams, and it was really interrupting my ability to play. It was almost like I had no strength, no muscle density at all, which was shocking because of how, it was shocking because of how often I trained, and that it was year round for me. I played a sport every season and took it very, very seriously. So it was confusing that I was so weak. So I was being tested for everything. And I think actually, through the years of being in therapy and really digesting the things that I went through my junior and senior year of high school, it really impacted my mental health that was already struggling. The trauma and the experience of going from doctor to doctor with all of these invasive tests and not getting any answers, and how that weighed on me as a child is something that I don't think I really processed until my mid-20s, but it really started the demise of my mental health.
I want to ask you, in that window, because you said you had a large family, how or what type of thoughts, like, was it like a lot of thoughts in your head at one time and it felt crowded in there? Like, kind of explain to me the feeling more than anything, or the thoughts that you were having in this window. Because if it's not something that you talked about in your kind of family, as you mentioned, or it's not prominent in our culture at the time you're going through this, you're in no man's land here. So for you to say something in the way of what you're actually feeling, you could have put yourself further out on an island. So, I mean, you obviously your confidence isn't there because you're an athlete, and these thoughts are affecting you so much. It's physically affecting you. So can you share with me the memories of what that was like when you realized you were, in your mind, you were slipping?
Sure. It's not enjoyable. I do this for a living, and it's hard to think about being that young and struggling so much. But I think the way it felt was that my mind was like a hamster wheel. It was just one thought after another, and it felt like in my head. I could not slow down. I could not catch my breath. I didn't know how to catch my breath, and I didn't understand that it doesn't mean something's wrong with me. It means that something's different about me. So then I started to get embarrassed. Then I started to feel like, I'm from a family of athletes. I'm from a family of strong, athletic individuals. I can't be struggling because I can't calm down my mind. To me, I associated that with weakness. And obviously that is not the case. If anyone listening is struggling with their mind, it is not a weakness. It is what it is. And it takes incredible strength to overcome and endure it. But at that time, I was naive. I didn't understand what was going on. And the only messages that were out there around mental health were negative, stigmatizing messages, that you're weak, that you're unpredictable, that you're violent, that you wouldn't be successful. So for me, growing up in a family where our name was prominent in the community, that athletics was such a big part, that I really took on that identity to think that I had a weakness about me. I didn't know how to share it. And even if I did know how to share what that felt like inside of me, I wouldn't have, just knowing where I was in that time of my life.
This is really interesting because the contradiction of what you were experiencing mostly inside and the identity that you carried of being the athlete and of this family name and so forth, that is a lot of pressure on a young person. Especially, I mean, when we're in our teen years, that high school window is so crucial because it's really the beginning of us developing our adult personality as well. So it's really hard to go into somebody's situation such as yours and to say, oh, yeah, this is how we address it, and you're going to move forward and you'll be fine. There's a process there that you're going to go through. So
connect with us on LinkedIn. Be our friend on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
Whether jumping out the MP or jumping on the app.
You are listening to Vince Cortese. We just want you to leave your mark.
Let's get you through college. You went to Mercyhurst. You went to Mercyhurst College up in Erie, and you get a BA in public relations, and you have an experience up there at 19. So what was that, sophomore year or?
It was my freshman year of college that I was officially diagnosed.
Okay, so now explain to me, because it sounds like this officially made itself known now, like you couldn't take it anymore and there was a turn in life, and share with me what that was like.
So there were several experiences, and to talk about all of them, we would be here until Friday. But there were several experiences that led into my life being really chaotic, right? So I was having panic attacks every day. I didn't know they were panic attacks, but I was having panic attacks every day. If I wasn't having a panic attack, I was using every fiber of my being to fight off a panic attack.
Okay, now share with me real quick, what would you describe, or how would you define a panic attack?
So for me, panic attacks are different for different people. For me, I would get intense tightening of my chest to the point where I felt like I couldn't get a deep breath. I couldn't breathe. So it would make me almost hyperventilate. A lot of times I would hyperventilate to the point that unfortunately I would throw up. I just would completely panic. My muscles tighten, my brain races out of control, and I would start to hyperventilate. Sometimes I would pass out. Sometimes I would throw up. Sometimes I would have to call 911. And that was happening to me daily. And if it wasn't happening to me, I was fighting off this anxious feeling all the time. I just could not get rid of it. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. My grades were dropping. I was getting taken to and from the hospital often. I got taken off my college campus on a stretcher. I had oxygen masks on my face, and I really learned what true terror really feels like. At that point, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, there was a particular situation where the ambulance was called, and luckily they were able to get me to calm down with my oxygen. And my husband said to me, please go get help. And still I said no. I said I didn't have a problem, which is wild considering the things that I just described to you and the chaos I was living. And I kept saying, no, I don't have a problem. And Connor, my husband, said to me, at this point, you're choosing to live like this. And for a 19-year-old, that sentence packed a really big punch. He was right. I was making a choice to not receive the help that was out there and not to at least explore what was going on, that maybe I could curb this chaos and get a handle on it. So I went to therapy. I went to 2 therapists that didn't work for me at all. And then my 3rd therapist most likely, saved my life and diagnosed me.
Okay, now the diagnosis comes back as generalized with anxiety disorder and panic disorder. Describe to me the definitions of that.
Okay, generalized anxiety disorder is my version of it, right, is a nagging anxiety that sits in you. and you may not know the reason why. Panic disorder is a little bit easier to explain. It's almost like there's a cause and an effect for me. Something happens, I have this explosive panic attack, and I can't control it while it happens. Both are very difficult to describe, but I think what's so important for listeners is to understand this is way more consuming than feeling butterflies in your stomach, right? I didn't prepare for this exam and my stomach's upset. This unfortunately became consuming anxiety that made me feel like I wanted to jump out of my skin. I felt uneasy all the time. Even when I was having fun, I have amazing friends. I have an amazing husband that was my boyfriend. We had a ton of fun, but it was always in the back of my mind. It was easily triggered. I was unhinged in terms of being able to control my emotions. So it was anxiety that was keeping me from completing daily tasks like someone else my age without this diagnosis would.
Okay, now, what do you decide to do after your diagnosis? Like, what is your original thought? Like, what went through you when you were diagnosed and what that meant to you? And when did you decide to do something about it?
Good question. I think that my initial thought is actually not the most common reaction. So I don't want anyone hearing this to think that this is how they should react to it. I know for me, I honestly felt liberated. I felt like, oh, so that's what's going on. I spent so much of my end of my childhood being poked and prodded and passed from doctor to doctor with no diagnosis, with never understanding what was going on with me. And that frustration and that fear never really left me. And when I was officially diagnosed, it was like I could start connecting the dots. I could understand, and it took some time, but that day I remember feeling relief that I had a diagnosis, that there were solutions out there, and that there was nothing wrong with my brain. There was something different about my brain. And now that I knew what it was, I could become an expert in my illness. I worked and still work incredibly hard at maintaining my anxiety and my mental health. Now when I struggle or in an anxious season, it looks way different than the chaos of whenever I was 19. But I started doing something immediately. And I think that's the athlete in me, right? Once I set my mind to something, or knowing that there was a solution out there, I was going to therapy twice a week, once a week, every other week, whatever I needed, and ebb and flowing. And there was just nothing. And I still have that mentality now. There is nothing I won't try, and there's nothing I won't do, because even though I struggled, and even though it was so difficult and that it was embarrassing at times, I never doubted that I deserved to be happy and healthy. So now that I knew what it was, I knew I was the only one that could create the happy and healthy life that I knew that I deserved to have.
Now, you said you started right away. What kind of work do you do? Is it like mental exercises? Are you listening to things? Are you reading things? Are you doing stuff to stimulate your body to create more relaxation in it? Like, how does someone begin to treat a mental illness?
My advice is to get with a mental health professional and to show up even when you don't want to show up, and be completely honest. So for me, what was unfortunate about when I started, had I started a couple years earlier, I think I would have been in a different place. And I have since left therapy, gone back to therapy, and I know when to go back now. Unfortunately, when I started, I had been living in crisis mode for so long that it was really, for a long time, just trying to get out of crisis mode. So how to deal with panic attacks, what coping techniques were available, what grounding techniques were, right? What breathing techniques were. And what that would do was give me solutions and things that I could do to combat the panic attacks that I was enduring daily. So for so long, I was honing in on those examples. The lifestyle things that you're referring to, like listening to experts and doing different exercises to maintain your mental health. I didn't have that option at the time because I was quite literally just trying to survive the day. Through the past, almost 20 years that I've been dealing with this, those portions, those coping techniques have become part of my everyday life, right? Like what I read, what I take in, how to unwind. That coping techniques is something as silly as like watching stand-up comedy, like releasing that serotonin in your mind, that can help release your anxiety. So those things weren't necessarily options for me when I was 19, but now at 35, it's something that I can take on a little bit better.
Now, you mentioned your husband, Connor. Now, you've been together with him for 18 years and you have 2 children. So you go from like your early adult years, your teen years, or the end of them, where you begin to discover this. Sounds like the majority of your 20s, since you're still having a battle with it a bit. What's it like being a mom and dealing with this?
Well, I think every mom worries a lot about how we are impacting our children. I think that I take my mental health very seriously. I worry all the time on how my diagnosis could impact them, or will they inherit my anxious characteristics. But through therapy, right, even before I decided, I was lucky enough to decide to start a family, to start trying to expand my family. And when I knew that I was going to be coming off medication, which was my choice, again, if you're pregnant and on a safe dosage of your medication, that's absolutely fine. Work with your team on that. But I wanted to try to come off my medication. I knew that I was going to have to up other coping techniques. So that was upping my therapy.
What was that therapy? What were you going through?
At the time, I was actually doing art therapy. So one thing that people struggle with mental health is that it's an invisible diagnosis, it's an invisible disease. So it's very hard to describe what's going on in your mind. It can be very isolating. Art therapy was something I tried at that time, which was super beneficial to me because it challenged me to, first of all, I'm a horrible artist. I have not have one and one non-artistic talent in me. But it was a really cool experience of trying to do something that was really difficult. I knew I wasn't going to be successful at it. So it kind of pushed all that to the wayside and just gave me the ability to try to create something visual to describe or explain what I was going through. And through art therapy, I made peace with a lot of different things in my past and in my childhood and how I was impacted by them, and talk through the intense fear of becoming a mom with a mental health condition. I think now, I still struggle from time to time, but there is no option, there is no world where I create a chaotic environment for my children to grow up in. So if I'm feeling anxious, there are plans in place. If I am struggling, there are plans in place. But also, the minute I feel anxious, I know what to do to curb that anxiety. So it's not a negative in my mind. I've worked very hard to think of that. It's actually a positive, because things that I could have used when I was younger, which is no fault to my parents, but things I could have used when I'm younger, my kids are getting that environment. Mental health will always be talked about in my household. There will be no stigma attached to it. It is something my kids will learn how to deal with stress. My 1.5-year-old does breathing techniques. She doesn't know she's doing a breathing technique. My 3-year-old does breathing techniques. He doesn't know that that's what it's called, but that's how we manage our emotions. So I actually think it's turning into a strength of mine when it comes to motherhood.
This is great. Now, nearly half your life has been going through this. Is this something that you feel like you're going to deal with your whole life, or do you feel like there'll be a tipping point where your mind doesn't go there anymore and you have that control and that peace?
I would love to say that is in my future, and I don't think that it is, though. And I don't say that in a sad way. I think that everyone is asked to endure adversity, and this is my adversity. I think that what I have done for myself and how I prioritize my health and the way that I handle adversity is a strength of mine. So I wouldn't change it. I think that what's the most important is not that I find myself cured from this, but that I see the progress, right? So now when I'm in an anxious season or if I'm experiencing depression, that looks so different. And that progress is something that I don't even get to sit in for very often because I am a mom and I run 2 companies. But I think that that's the focal point, is that now my biggest reaction is that I get pissed. I'm full of rage whenever I get anxiety. When I was 19, I was hospitalized. So I'll take the anger. I wish that sometimes that this wasn't something that I had to endure, but that wishing that I didn't have to endure this isn't going to get me anywhere. So I don't really try to focus on that.
If you have a story to share, tell us. How are you going to leave your mark? Contact us. Leave your mark with our host, Vince Cortese. Be our guest.
You mentioned you had medication.
Yeah.
Would you be an advocate of the medication, or does it help or does it hinder? Like myself, when I had my illness, I've always felt like the medication masked my pain. And I wanted to know how much pain I was in order to know, do I need to mask this or not?
Right.
So what was your take on the medication?
So I am not an advocate for or against medication. I'm an advocate for people finding what works for them. I think that I have been on medication and I have been off medication. I think anyone that struggles with mental health and has to be on medication has a really hard time with it, because I do feel like in some cases you feel like you're underwater. That was my experience. However, there was a time in my life where I needed to be underwater for a minute, and the way that my therapist explained it to me was that we need to get you at the same starting line as everybody else so that you can attack the problem. And where I was nowhere near the starting line. So I needed to calm my mind down enough so that I could slow my thoughts down enough that I could make real progress in my diagnosis. So at the time, the medication was never and is never going to cure me. It is just a tool that I had at my disposal at that time so that I could do the work necessary to actually make changes on how my brain was operating and how I reacted to my anxiety. So I'm not on medication now, but if the time comes that that's what I need, then I will be open to that. So I think be an advocate for yourself, ask questions, ask what those symptoms going on the medications like, ask what withdrawal feels like, work with your team, find a team that you can trust to help create your plan so that you can feel confident moving forward and know that you're still going to have to, it's not an antibiotic, right? It doesn't cure what's going on. So my recommendation is if you're on the medication, you better be doing the work in therapy or somewhere else as well.
Now, how would you describe the cause of mental health disorder?
It's different, right? It's different for different people. Some of it's genetic, some of it's environmental, some of it is a reaction to a traumatic event. I think that that's a hard question to answer because we don't know. Different people react to different situations. One situation could happen to me and the exact same situation could happen to you, and we could have very different reactions. So I think that I understand what went awry with me now. I think that there was a lot of things going on in my life at the time that were heavy and traumatic for me. And I think that it was my environment, but I also think there's part of me that just has been a little bit more anxious my whole life. So I think that's hard to describe.
Yeah, that I agree with you. It sounds like it would definitely be something that's to the individual. All right, now your anger is shown in you putting up your dukes, so to speak, here. You're an author of 4 books. You have the acceptance movement on a YouTube channel, and you're a public speaker. So if you would please tell me what the name of the books are, and then bring me up to date of what you're currently doing.
Sure. So I run a mental health organization called Listen Lucy, which uses my lived experiences to travel around the country and to normalize the conversation around mental health and educate on stigma and help people seek the help that is out there. I've been doing that I just celebrated my 10-year anniversary. I have 4 books.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have 4 books, Listen Lucy Volume 1, Write It Out, which is a writing prompt book, Little Lucy and the Little Butterflies, and Little Lucy Bullies. We have filmed a docuseries, which is the acceptance movement that you were referring to. That was about 6 years ago. But in the past 10 years, I have shared my story with tens of thousands of people across the country. I've been featured on some of the biggest media outlets in the country, in the world. I have launched another business when the pandemic deeply impacted Listen Lucy. And I feel like I've done everything I can with my skill set to try to make the world, a better, more accepting place.
It was outstanding. Now, it brings me to my final question. How would you like to leave your mark? How do you want to be remembered?
This, I love this question. I think it's such a difficult thing to answer, because many years ago, before I had my kids, I would say that I want a big life with big accomplishments and to create change, and that I had something in me that I know could change the world. And I'm not saying that that's not my response anymore, because I want a big career. I'm proud of my career. I'm proud of my resume. I'm proud of what I've done. So I want that to be a part of it. But now, being a mom, I think my goal is much bigger and much simpler at the same time. Like, I want my kids to see what I've done with the hand I've been dealt, and I want them to see what hard work looks like. But more so, I want to create a happy, content, calm environment for them to grow up in. I want them to remember me, which is so sad to even think about, but I want them to remember me as being happy and at peace and content and present. And I think that's a bigger challenge for me right now. And I think that there's the mark I want to leave on the world, and then there's the mark I want to leave on my world. And my world and my little people that count on me deserve to have a present mom that creates happy memories for them.
I think you're doing just that. This is a great story, and I think it's going to have a good ending. I think that someday you conquer this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that vote of confidence, and for thinking my story is interesting enough to feature on your podcast. I really appreciate it.
Well, yours is one of which a lot of people hear about, but they don't necessarily experience, and or they may have experienced a touch of it and they didn't know what it was. And somebody like yourself getting out there and helping bringing this awareness, people can take a better look at themselves. And you're doing great work. You should feel very good about yourself. This is amazing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. That's very nice of you. And thank you so much. And, I hope that I am making some impact and some change. Some days it feels like it more than others, but I think that, the goal that I originally set out to accomplish has been accomplished. And now, from here, it's just icing on the cake. Whatever we can do to make sure that the environment our kids grow up in is better than the one that I did is exactly what I want to do.
Okay, real quick, give me your websites and the call tags and where we can find you.
Yes, look at listenlucy.org, and across all social media, my handle is @listenlucy, one word.
Thank you, Jordan, so much. I appreciate your time and being here. We'll be keeping our eye out for you, and you doing a good work out there.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Leave Your Mark today. Tune into our next episode of Leave Your Mark with Vince Cortese. Be blessed.
You just left your mark. Thanks for listening. Listen to more episodes on demand. Just click Leave Your Mark with Vince Cortese.